Welcome to Mac Stories Unwind, the show that's all about the picks. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Fetici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So today, Federico, I have a pick. I want to talk to you about Bitcoin and crypto, which I know is one of your all-time favorite topics.
You're not going to turn into one of those guys, are you?
I'm going to have lasers coming out of my eyes in my profile picture online, Federico. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to hodl. I'm going to hodl my Bitcoins.
You're going to become a crypto bro.
A quick crypto bro. That you know me. I mean, I was made for being a crypto bro.
Oh, God.
No, you know better than that, Federico. I am not becoming a crypto bro. But I am enjoying a book by Andy Greenberg called Tracers in the Dark, which Andy Greenberg is a writer for Wired, and he wrote a book all about the dark web and the role of cryptocurrency in financing the dark web. Now, this is a book that I first heard about from Jason Schreier from the Triple Click podcast, because that's a podcast about video games. But at the end of each episode, they have one more thing, which is they recommend usually some media that they've been enjoying. And this is a book that Jason recommended about a month ago or so. And I'm not all the way through it, but I'm far enough in to say that I've really, really enjoyed it, because as much as I'm very much a crypto skeptic, I guess, in terms of having grown up, I suppose, as a professional bankruptcy lawyer for many years of my professional life. I find this crypto as nothing but shenanigans and ways to get around kind of centuries of the banking world and banking regulation, and it really ends, so I've not been really particularly surprised by what we've seen happen in that world and a lot of the fraud that has happened. But I also find it kind of fascinating in the kind of true crime way that people find things fascinating. And that's what this book really is all about, because it's about the fact that there's been a lot of misunderstanding about cryptocurrency over the years. And I think with Bitcoin in particular, there was a notion years ago now that it was completely untraceable, because when you transferred Bitcoin, it was transferred on the blockchain. The transaction was recorded as a very long series of numbers, essentially. It's just that's the identification for the transaction, but it's not tied to you, like your name or anything like that directly. But that doesn't mean it's untraceable either. It just means it maybe takes a little bit more work. Mm-hmm. And what this book is all about is how a number of different FBI agents and other people in law enforcement started following what was going on with the dark web, in particular Silk Road, and how they were using Bitcoin to exchange as currency for all kinds of illegal activity. And what they realized is that by putting together a lot of different pieces of information that they were able to glean from websites and other transactional stuff going on in the web, they were able to eventually tie blockchain transactions directly to the illegal activity. And so the book opens with one of the busts in the early part of the book, where someone's being arrested, and he's living kind of a very middle class, ordinary life, but he's involved in the dark web behind the scenes, and the FBI comes in and arrests him. And it goes on from there, kind of telling the story of each of these different people who were making money on the blockchain, selling drugs or guns or whatever it might be, and how they were eventually caught. And it was it reads like a true crime novel. It really reads like a thriller, and I think it's interesting in that it's a part of internet history that I think a lot of people don't necessarily know very well. But I also feel like it's a little bit of an incomplete story in some respects because, I mean, obviously the story of crypto goes well beyond things like dark web criminal transactions. This is the most salacious part of it probably, and probably the most interesting to tell from a storytelling standpoint. But, you know, there's a lot to be said about the actual technology itself, about the more mundane financial fraud that has happened in places. I think that at some point there will be a very good book about what has happened with some of these, you know, FTX and some of these other things that have happened, which are not all about crypto, but very interesting stories there as well. But I think what Andy Greenberg does is he really puts the faces and to the names behind a lot of these stories, both the criminals who had, in a lot of cases, ultimately are tripped up by doing dumb things. Like there's a crooked DEA agent who ends up using his own personal email to sign up for an account for something because he had trouble.
Genius.
Yeah, he had trouble with his fake identity getting it to work. So he just was like, you know, screw it, whatever, and use his own email, and that's one way they
to the best of us,
right? That's how they tied him back to a transaction. And there's, you know, other people doing other things that were, you know, between things like IP addresses and other things. People got lazy and careless about covering their tracks, and it's that kind of data that they were able to kind of put together the story as to, you know, how these activities were connected to these particular transactions. So it's, but what's neat about it really is kind of the gumshoe aspect of it, of the detective work, the labor of going through all these transactions and you know, following the trails to the criminals themselves, both from the standpoint of the people in the law enforcement agencies that were involved with this, as well as kind of what was going on the criminal side with these criminals who felt like they were untouchable because they were using completely untraceable transactions, when in fact, it turns out that they were not as untraceable as they thought. And so that whole scene has largely dried up, I think, as a result of this. But this is a really interesting sliver of internet history that I think is fun to read. And I think it's a great book.
All right. So what's the title again?
It's called Tracers in the Dark, and it's by Andy Greenberg.
All right. So I have a couple of hardware picks.
Oh, interesting.
For this week's Unwind. Maybe they can be a fun weekend project for those who are interested. And one of them is something that basically you like forced me to buy in a way.
I do that.
Just because you kept talking about it, and you know, then you wrote about it, and then we saw some updates on that front, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna go ahead and order this product. So it's a video game controller. I want to talk briefly about the 8BitDo Ultimate controller. I got the version so there's two versions of this controller. Made by a company, 8BitDo, that you may be familiar with as the guys that, you know, the folks that make the retro-looking controllers, like the SN30 Pro, for example,
right?
Which is the one that looks like a Super Nintendo controller, but you know, with a modern layout and modern features. They made a bunch of Bluetooth adapters, USB adapters. I'm pretty sure that years ago I bought like one of their GameCube Bluetooth adapters that you could use to use like an original GameCube controller from 20 years ago with the Nintendo Switch. Sort of like it acted as a like it was this little dongle device that turned a GameCube controller's signal into Bluetooth so that you could use it with a Nintendo Switch. Great company, they make really good hardware. And for a while now, they've been making this Ultimate controller, which is, it kind of looks like an Xbox controller, right? It's got that sort of Xbox vibe and layout. And there are two versions of it. One of them that you can use with Windows and the Nintendo Switch with a USB adapter. And another that was updated last week with full sort of Apple platform compatibility over Bluetooth. The version I got is the Windows and Nintendo Switch version. which I have been testing mostly with my gaming PC. It comes with this USB adapter that in theory you can also plug into the Nintendo Switch dock, but I haven't done it because I just wanted to have something that I could use use with my gaming PC with Steam and Game Pass, basically, instead of I just wanted to play around with it because I like the idea of it. It comes with its own little docking station, right? This is the kind of controller that when you pick it up from the docking station, which charges via USB-C, it turns on automatically. And when you place it on the docking station again, it turns off automatically. So it's very nicely done. So I set it up with my gaming PC. And obviously, I just needed to. I chose to go with the 2.4G adapter route. So it comes with this little USB-A dongle. It looks like a little USB-A pen drive. You plug it into a PC. In the back of the controller, there's a switch. There's a physical switch that you can place on two different positions. You can place it on the Bluetooth position, or you can place it on the 2.4G slot. Placed it on the 2.4G slot. First thing I did, I downloaded from the 8BitDo website the firmware updater tool, and it took me like a couple of minutes, I ran a firmware update to update both the controller and the USB receiver. After that, I opened Steam, and my controller was recognized right away. First thing, it vibrated in my hands. It's like it automatically paired with my gaming PC. And then I just opened a game from Steam. In fact, it was Octopath Traveler, which I covered last week on Unwind. And it recognized the controller right away, and it worked. Signal reception was great, thanks to the USB receiver. I didn't have to go into Windows settings for Bluetooth to pair the controller manually. It was literally plug and play. And when I was done playing, I placed it again on the little charging station that it comes with, and it turns off, and that's it. Like, this is it was a very nice experience, and you were right about all the other things you said about this controller. Like, the buttons feel good, the joysticks, the sticks, the analog sticks, they feel great.
Yeah, they really do.
They have to be some of the best analog sticks that I've tried in a third-party controller.
Yeah, I think that this controller too just looks really nice. I actually put it on my shelf in my office because I think the white one in that white
I got the white version. It's very, very minimal looking, very elegant.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. And you're right. It's just like such a smooth experience for something that usually, third-party controllers can be a little finicky when you're connecting them to a device. But that hasn't been my experience at all. It's a really, really nice controller.
Yeah. The two things I don't like, which I want to mention. First, I think it's kind of confusing, like these multiple versions. Like,
that is very confusing.
There should be one version, and it should do everything. Like, I still don't understand, like, what happens if I place the switch in the back of the controller in the Bluetooth position. Am I going to be able to use it with my iOS device or not? Like, I find this multiple version thing very confusing. There should be one version of this controller. So maybe that's something they can fix with the Ultimate 2 if it ever comes out or something. Like, make one version and make it work with everything. And the second is, I'm pretty sure the layout of the buttons is flipped. Like, the A and B and X and Y front-facing buttons are in inverse positions compared to a standard Xbox controller, which, I mean, it's no big deal. But like, when I'm playing, for example, when I resumed playing Octopath Traveler, because I was playing it with an Xbox controller before, the game kept asking me, like, if you want to perform your path action, you need to press X. But actually, on the 8BitDo Ultimate, the button is the Y button.
Yeah, it's because you got the Switch version of the controller, I think.
But it works with Windows. Like, I don't know.
I know, I understand, but I think that one is marketed particularly to the Switch because the other version doesn't work with the Switch. That's what is so confusing about this. This version, which is the same one I have, works with the Switch. The other one doesn't work with the Switch, but does work with Apple products and Android as well. It's like,
and Windows too,
and Windows and Steam and Steam OS.
I got the wrong version. I knew this was going to happen.
And Steam OS. If you want to use it with a Steam Deck, you can do that too.
So which version is the one with the right layout?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
this one.
the layouts are
One.
the layouts actually different between the two?
It is actually different. Like I'm looking at it on Amazon Italy.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I should have gotten this version. Well, the thing is, I can probably return it and still get this other version. On Amazon Italy, it's the version called for Windows and Android, but it literally looks the same. The only difference is the X and Y buttons are in the right positions.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at their website now, and you're right. The buttons are different, and it is really confusing if you look at this website to figure out what's what, because otherwise, hardware-wise, these are identical controllers. It's just the compatibility with what systems they work with.
Yeah, I literally just went ahead and ordered this one because I know myself. I cannot stand the thought of having like the not appropriate version of something. But regardless, it doesn't change my recommendation. It's a great controller. It pairs automatically with if you're using a gaming PC. The buttons feel great. The sticks feel great. I love it. It's and the charging station looks very elegant on a desk, on a shelf. Like, yeah, it's just pay attention to the version you get. And it's the second hardware pick. So this is a product that I recently discovered. I went in a bit skeptical, thinking, okay, if it doesn't work out the way, like I was theorizing before purchasing this product, and I thought, okay, if it doesn't work the way I think this is going to work, I'm just going to return it because it's not worth it. And I'm pretty sure it's a product I never heard anyone in our circle sort of talk about it. So the product is called the Microsoft Audio Dock. This thing sort of looks like two HomePod minis squished together horizontally. It's sort of got that look. It's marketed as a speakerphone for conference calls. It's
very Microsoft in that way. It's got this it's this weird hybrid, like enterprisey, yes. But also media savvy product, right?
Yes. So let me tell you about this product from a more sort of maybe Apple-centric and consumer-centric perspective and why it actually surprised me. So it looks like it's a speakerphone that kind of looks, it's covered in fabric. It's got an integrated microphone. And on the top of it, it's got these physical controls. One of them is a huge button to open Microsoft Teams, which I don't use because I don't use Microsoft Teams. It's got a pause and play button, plus and minus for volume control, and a microphone button to mute, I guess, the microphone input. The thing that Microsoft, I think they don't do a good job explaining about this product is that if you don't care about conference calls, you can use it to play music. It's a speaker. It's got two small tweeters inside, and it can be used as a desk speaker. But in addition to that, it's also a USB hub that charges. It's got its own power supply. It's a USB hub that comes with a bunch of ports in the back, including HDMI, USB-A, and USB-C for video output to a USB-C compatible monitor. So my theory was, this is a very interesting product that and I discovered that it existed because I was thinking to myself, these USB hubs or these Thunderbolt docks that you place on your desk, it's kind of a waste of space. And I was thinking, I wonder if anybody has ever made like a Thunderbolt dock that also happens to be a speaker. Because I find myself in the position of like, okay, I got this CalDigit dock on my desk, but like, why do I need to look at this aluminum box? Like, it should also do something else to justify the space that it occupies on my desk. And I don't know, it's just the way that my brain works. I started thinking, is there like anything that is like a speaker, but also a USB hub? Turns out there's a couple of options. Logitech, they also make one called the Logi Hub, I want to say, or the Logi Dock, something like that. But I was intrigued by this Microsoft one because of the video output. So my theory was, okay, what happens if I buy this product and I try to use it both with my gaming PC and an iPad Pro? Going into a studio display. Will it work? And I was like, it's probably not going to work. You got that one cable going into your computer and another cable going into the studio display. And I thought, well, the cable that goes into the computer, what happens if I swap it between the PC and the iPad Pro? If I plug it into the iPad Pro, will it actually work? And let me tell you, John, it does work.
That's
the
amazing.
Microsoft Audio Dock, I have been testing it with a USB cable going into my 11-inch iPad Pro.
Yeah.
And another Thunderbolt cable, I should say USB-C cable, USB 4 cable with USB-C plug going into the studio display. And it totally works with Stage Manager.
Huh. That's amazing to me because it's whenever you're dealing with things like docks, you really never know what you're going to get, especially when you're kind of going off the beaten path like you are with this thing.
Couple of things, however, worth mentioning.
Okay.
The reason I wanted to test it was like, will it work? Like it's not. This is not a Thunderbolt device, so if you plug it into the iPad Pro, the output, the sound output will go through the Microsoft Audio Dock, not through the studio display speakers. And similarly, I'm pretty sure, I haven't been able to confirm this yet, but I'm pretty sure on the studio display, you're not getting a 5K image, you're getting a 4K image, right? Because this is not Thunderbolt. This is, you're basically using USB-C DisplayPort alt mode. This is what you're using. But it does work. And you can alternate in between, like plugging this thing into a gaming PC or plugging this thing into an iPad Pro, and the other peripherals that you have plugged into the dock are going to switch between computers, right? Because you're basically using a USB hub that also happens to be a speaker, that also happens to be a video output device, and you're swapping it between two different platforms, but all the things that are plugged into the hub are going to switch as well, right? Because you're changing the host, essentially. And yeah, this really surprised me. I mean, for a desktop speaker of that size, it sounds pretty good. I mean, you put it at full volume. This doesn't sound nearly as good as a full-blown HomePod. I'm pretty sure the HomePod Mini, a single HomePod Mini, sounds probably better. This thing sounds better than other cheap portable speakers I've tried. I think it's good enough. And I mean, you put it at 100%, you're going to feel your desk vibrate, for sure. I have it in front of me, sitting under the studio display, and it works. And you press the volume buttons, you can change the volume on the iPad Pro. You see Microsoft Audio Dock as a volume output device in Control Center. You know, the whole deal.
Sure.
So go check it out. Do some research if you're interested in this product. It surprised me, and I think more companies, like my dream, imagine like a HomePod for your desk that is both a HomePod and a Thunderbolt dock. Apple will never do it, but hey, a man can dream, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's interesting. I'll tell you, until you showed me this thing, I was like, wait, what is that? I've never heard of that at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. All right, Federico. Well, that's enough for this week. You can find the two of us over at MacStories.net. We're on Mastodon. You can find us by going to Viticci.MacStories.net or JohnVorhees.MacStories.net. Those are our Mastodon profile pages. You can also find us on Instagram, where Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.